What's going on, everyone? It is Fight Night Uncaged. Today is Monday, February 24th. We got an awesome show for you today. Don't have a UFC pay-per-view to break down necessarily, but we do go over all the fight announcements that were made over the weekend. And then we go over, we just make a topic. We chose Mount Rushmore. So we go over our 4 favorite fighters of all time, break those down, really get into the nitty-gritty with those. I want to thank everybody who did watch, likes, comments, subscribes, gives us more topics to tune into. Love y'all. We'll see ya. What's going on, everybody? It's Fight Night Uncaged. February 24th, Monday. Dana White has blessed us finally with some announcements. I feel like it was kind of stale for a while. I think we were getting kind of worried. I was getting kind of worried for a little bit there. I was like, I need something to kind of tickle my fancy a little bit. And then he sure as hell did it. So Ilya is going to vacate the featherweight title.
Yep.
And then, so in turn, Volk and Diego Lopez are going to fight for the featherweight title. My question to you with that, does that mean Max stays at lightweight?
I thought he already had said he was moving up to 55.
And he was just staying there? I thought he was
think that was
going, okay. So, because I always thought he was in that conversation as well, but so Volk and Diego Lopez then will now fight for the featherweight title.
Okay.
You couldn't ask for a better. I mean, besides Ilya, which I mean, maybe that's just hard for him to make that weight.
I would think so, yeah.
Besides, even Diego Lopez is huge. I feel like everybody, it's hard for every single person that we just said to make that weight.
145, right? Yeah, it's hard weight for those guys to make.
Volk's big ass.
He used to do rugby. He was like over 200.
But like that. So those 3 guys, it's really hard for any of them to make featherweight. But that fight's gonna be fantastic to me. Yeah. That's a banger. I hope Volk is this is enough time for him to kind of bounce back. I think he's 36. I think he's still I don't know, depends on how those 2 knockouts really affected him.
When's the last time he fought again?
He was knocked out by Ilya.
But his last 2 losses were both knockouts.
Ilya, and then he was knocked out by Islam. He was knocked out by Islam in 23, and then knocked out this time last year by Ilya. Literally a year ago.
It's been at least a year now.
It's been 1 year, so like he's been chilling. I like that though,
because last time he like rushed into it, didn't he?
He fought in October,
and then fought right again away in February, which it's not that many months in between there.
That's definitely like getting knocked out in October, the end of October. So October, November, December, January, February.
But does that argue that he should have took more time
100%
than a year? Probably. I mean, I think I could
it's see a case where
you could have maybe taken 2 years off.
It's going to be in April, so that's a year and 2 months. I mean, we'll see how it.
Yeah.
It just this is a very like deciding factor to me.
Yeah.
This is a weird time that we're living in right now, where all of the best like Izzy just lost. It's kind of like, all right, that was the deciding factor of, all right, Izzy's never fighting for a title ever again. Like that.
No, yeah, I know. Yeah,
if Volk loses, like this is if he wins the title, obviously. But like if he loses,
it solidifies his downfall.
You should we'll see how it goes.
Because like the knockout from Islam, you can make the argument, okay, that's the first time he's been like knocked out bad,
and that was on short notice too, because Islam needed a fight, and Volk was just I'll fight, let's do it.
It was not in his cards, and then the Ilya one's like, okay, well maybe.
It was the same thing though, where they needed a fight, and Volk was like, yeah, I'll fight. I'm not ready to fight, but I'll fight.
And lost his belt.
And he was very vocal about like, I was drinking if I wasn't fighting. Like I was very depressed if I wasn't fighting. Yeah, so like I get it. He wanted to fight. also announced on this card. So this is the one we're talking about, is UFC 314.
Mm-hmm.
Co-main event, Michael Chandler, Paddy Pimblett.
Mm-hmm.
Very odd matchup to me. And it doesn't, like, this is the thing I was saying to you earlier. If Michael wins, that like Paddy's stock completely drops. If Paddy wins, Michael's stock completely diminishes. You lost to Paddy Pimblett. Like, I don't know. That's just this is a very odd matchup to me that the UFC would make, because it's like, well, Michael Chandler has never once had a boring fight in the UFC, or maybe ever. So why, like, will I drop his stock when he is gonna, even if he's not gonna fight for a title? Why let's have him
I don't know.
have banger fights?
There could be many underlying like factors as far as like they could be business related. Maybe they're trying to push one of them two out, and maybe they're hoping one of them
It
isn't worth keeping anymore.
And that's what is weird to me then, I guess, too, if they're really trying to do that with like Paddy.
It's gasp.
Maybe. Yeah, no, because that's what I was thinking too. If they're trying to do that with like Paddy, they really don't like Paddy.
Yeah,
and
one of them they don't like, I would assume.
At one point though, I would think you like Michael, you like Chandler, because he gets you views where he never has a boring fight. Every fight he has, like, he is one of those people where he draws. If he's on a card, you're like, oh shit, I'll watch it. He's on this card. But where was I going with this? He never has a boring fight. I feel like he's the guy who will say yes to just about anything. Look at the wars he's had. Charles twice, Justin, Dustin, like Tony. He's had wars where it's like, I don't think he says no to anybody, where he's not going to say no to the boss man. He worked hard to get to the UFC, and now I don't think he wants to leave. So let's give, he's going to say yes to any fight they give him. Paddy, on the other hand, I feel like is like, no, I'm not going to fight him. No, I'm not going to fight him. He was like, it took him forever to get to the UFC anyways, because he was just like, no, I'm okay. He kind of is doing his own thing, where if they really don't like him and they're trying to get Paddy out, that's crazy how he went from being like
the guy,
he was like, oh shit, he's going to be your next global superstar because he has this huge English following.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got to, any English card, you got to put around Paddy. You model
and
it.
And then Meatball or whatever.
Yeah. You make an England card and you put Tom Aspinall, Paddy, and Molly McCann in there. And it's a banger fight. Mm-hmm. Where if you're really trying to get him out, that's just crazy how much of a turnaround that was. And how he was getting in fights with Ilya, calling him a bitch. And that was how I first got introduced to Ilya, was like, Paddy slapped him with hand sanitizer or whatever. Now just look at how the tables turn.
Yeah. I don't know. I think I could see Paddy Pimblett being a hard one to work with, maybe.
Yeah.
Possibly.
I could also see him beating Michael Chandler.
So I think from their perspective, like UFC and like the matchmaker's perspective, if it is that way, they're throwing Paddy Pimblett to a gator, basically, which is Michael Chandler. They're assuming that Chandler is going to chew him up and spit him out, hopefully.
I hope.
I think that's probably what they're assuming, but I don't know. I can't say for certain.
And the odds are pretty even. I'm looking at it here, but it's also
I
like,
think Chandler just cooks him.
I think it's just, going into it though, it's kind of an even. I mean, it's a pretty even matchup.
It is.
Where Paddy definitely has more of the ground game. If he can weather that first barrage where Michael attacks and then is gassed.
But Michael Chandler does make it into the championship rounds though too.
Gassed, but
he still fights. But that's the thing about Paddy, is like, I don't know what he does in the later rounds.
I don't know if this is it's the co-main, so maybe a 5-round, but it might not be. Yeah. And then speaking of this too, this is one you were excited for.
Yeah, that's gonna be fire.
Yair Rodriguez and Patricio Pitbull.
I'm hyped.
That's fire.
That's gonna be a bang.
That's a fire fight.
I love seeing these Bellator guys making it over finally. Like it's like my childhood coming true finally.
Michael Chandler,
Michael
Patricio, MVP.
MVP, Patricio Pitbull. Like I used to watch those guys on Bellator when I was a teenager and couldn't like afford to watch UFC.
So kind of the same, almost kind of the same thing though. What does that say about Yair if they're feeding him this?
No, that's a money fight.
You think? Okay, I don't
That
know enough about Pitbull, but
that's
that's what I'm saying. If Pitbull beats Yair, is that just like
for heart like real fans. Like that's a treat to the fans.
this is a good fight? Okay,
Yeah.
but that's what I was saying. Like same thing as this as the Patty fight, where it's like, do they want Yair out?
I think that's also a treat to this is them making an effort to like actually appeal to the fans with these fights, in my opinion, because they are all good fights.
The
And that's the thing. It's funny
I'm
because they're sacrificing
that's what I'm
names
saying.
each
They're
time.
sacrificing Yair almost
But
because
that's
it's
what
like
we want, right? We want competition.
yeah, I want this a
So
banger
this is
fight.
kind of what we want as a
The
audience.
thing that it's so hard to sell me on a Patty like Michael Chandler. Like Michael Chandler is the only selling
What do you
point
mean?
to
I
me.
would just want to watch him get cooked.
I get. Like I guess
That's
I
the
just
idea I think behind it is just
I
hopefully
hope
Chandler
so.
just knocks him out first round because you can just see
That'd be
his bullpen just
crazy.
getting whiplash and him getting cooked and like slammed to the floor. You know,
Oh,
there's so many things that could happen.
that would be so fire.
But yeah,
I'm
if
just
Chandler gets his hands on him, he's done.
I'm
He's a
not
ragdoll.
I'm just not a fan of him at all.
Chandler like back suplexes people and shit too. Like he does all types of stuff.
Then this was announced. Leon Edwards was supposed to fight. Shit. He was supposed to fight somebody, and then he had to fight Sean Brady, or they pulled out, and now he's fighting Sean Brady instead. And then that coincided with Bilal is fighting Jack Della Maddalena, which I heard. I don't know if you heard. They gave it to Shavkat, gave him the title shot, but he's hurt, and he said, "I can't do it." He was hurt, can't. I think this is for May.
Okay.
Yeah, May 10th. So this was for May. So he's hurt, and he's like, "I can't do it, can't fight." So then they put in Jack Della Maddalena. This is the future. I think Jack Della beats Bilal, and then it's JDM and Shavkat and this new wave, and then Ian Gary, and you have this new wave of the killers, and you got Leon, Kamaru, Bilal, all going out. Bilal had the title for a minute, but a second, now he's out.
We'll see.
I really think this is the new wave.
How old is Bilal again?
36.
Okay.
Yeah, JDM's 28. And you got Shavkat just as soon as he gets better. You got Ian Gary just waiting in the wings.
Mm-hmm.
You got all these young bloods just kind of waiting in the wings.
I can see it. It just really depends on if somebody can beat Bilal or not. How long that takes. Eventually, he's gonna get beat. It's just by who.
Yeah, he's a little older. You got these, like I said, you got these young bloods that are
How old
just
is Jack?
28.
Oh wow, I thought he was a lot older than that.
You got young bloods in here.
I
Just
thought Jack was like 30 something.
ooh, he's a young boy, young blood. And then Valentina got a fight announced too. Manon Finro,
Okay.
French lady. I did my research. She deserves the title shot.
Legit?
She beat Rose. She beat some other ladies.
Okay, cool.
I want Valentina to beat her. I'm not saying she will, but I want Valentina to beat her, and then make a super fight with Weili.
What's this French lady's fight style like? What does she do?
She's knocked a couple girls out. Let me see.
She's a striker.
Oh, so she beat decision. All decisions wins, but I'm pretty sure she's a striker. She beat Rose. Her last two fights, Erin Blanchfield, she just beat by decision. And then Rose, she beat by decision as well.
So she's not a wrestler.
No.
Yeah, clearly.
No.
All right.
Yeah, it says here so Valentina is listed as Muay Thai, and then she's a karate style.
Okay. Yeah, that'd be interesting to watch.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. What I'm hoping is that they can use this to kind of springboard a Weili super fight.
Yeah, I
like
mean,
we were saying before.
That's kind of what they need for sure.
That would be everything I want and need in
A
life.
champ in the women's division would be kind of cool.
Get some. I feel like she's always kind of. Her and Wei Li are always kind of slept on too, where it's Amanda was always the main like attraction.
Because she would just knock people out.
Right. And but think about Valentina. She would
Yeah.
knock people out, but it was also like dominance. I'm gonna hit you, I'm gonna piece you up and take you down and just apply absolute pressure to you.
Yeah.
You know, that Russian like pressure
Just beating
style.
somebody up essentially.
So I mean these great fights and then March 8th we got Pereira Ankalaev and then Gaethje Dan Hooker, which I just I'm so excited.
It's gonna be a fun one.
I'm so excited. I want Dan Hooker to win so badly.
I think he will, but it's hard to say. But I think
there's no hate on Justin. I want Dan Hooker to win so bad. I want him to just get his. He's been. I feel like kind of.
He's a journeyman.
He was a journeyman. I want him to get his though. He deserves it.
He's in his Super Saiyan mode. His
exactly
dad mode.
Tatted up, dad mode.
I fucks with it.
The only other thing that I wanted to ask you about would be, so they haven't announced it, but so Ilya is going up to lightweight. Mm-hmm. Does he just get the shot?
No. Islam already said that he wouldn't entertain it right away.
Because that's like you have to have him fight somebody, right? You can't just throw him to the wall. Like, I think, well, you could
give him to Dustin Poirier.
100%. I'd be kind of pissed. Not saying that there's no real people who you can claim though have a true shot. Not a shot, but like, what's the word I'm looking for? Who deserve it. There's no guy who's like, he hasn't fought Islam already. This is the guy who's beaten everybody. Everybody who is in that question has lost to Islam.
Or Sarukian. You give him to Sarukian.
Sarukian. But he did Dana wrong, so he's gonna go back in the wings. So yeah, he could fight Ilya for a number one contender fight.
Yeah, but that'd be a favor for Sarukian in Dana's eyes. That would be like doing him a favor, giving him that fight, probably.
Right.
So odds of that happening are probably unlikely.
And that's right away. But if you give him the shot right away, I'm gonna be pissed.
I don't think that'll happen. But we'll see.
But I could see a world where they're like, yeah, he deserves it. Mm-hmm. And there's all these other guys have lost it already. So like, we need some young meat or we need like some fresh blood in there.
Yeah, I think they know better to do that because Islam's already spoken out against it too.
Yeah, but I wouldn't mind that if he fought Dustin.
I think that would be a fun one because they're both like strikers, boxers almost.
The only thing with that though is if Dustin beats him, what do you do with Ilya then?
Well, he's in 55 now.
Is he officially in 55? I guess,
or is he? Wanted. He's in the division.
It's like, all right, so you buckle up. You got beat by Dustin.
Yeah.
I feel like that's not doing Dustin any favors. So you got to back
up. You just gave him a
champion.
Like he wants legacy fights at this point, so that would be like, oh, he just beat a champion. But at the same time, too, he might look at it, oh, he's a lower weight than me.
That's what I'm saying. So, like,
it's really up to Dustin too, I guess. But I would think he would take it. I think any champion,
if they pay him enough.
Yeah, it's not like Ilya like lost his belt or anything. He gave it up.
An Ilya Dustin fight though would
be fire.
Absolutely fire.
Fire as fuck. Because I could see like Ilya knocking him out.
I could see Dustin piecing him up though.
Yeah, I think Dustin's slower than Ilya. And
yeah.
I think I think you let Ilya gain 10 more pounds, and I think he's still faster than Dustin.
If he's not cutting, if it was hard for him to cut to 45, and if he has no if he's not cutting and he's not dealing with a weight issue,
he probably walks around like my weight, like 170, 175.
He's a little guy too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's like my height. He's like 5'8", 5'9", something like that.
That would just be something. I like that would be. I got.
You make that a main event easy.
You could 100%
easily.
It's odd. We're seeing just the complete takeover almost. I feel like of all the old fighters have like sealed their fate, where it's like, yeah, they are not fighting for a title anymore. It's all the young bloods now coming through.
Yeah, that's fine.
I think that was all I really wanted to, all the news that I had. I said, I want Henry to lose and retire. That's just, I don't know.
Yeah, it's kind of sad seeing Cejudo fight right now.
Yep. It's odd.
Yeah, it's weird because he left like on top in a good spot with his legacy in a really good spot.
Fully intact.
Yep. And he came back and just lost
And now
it
you
all.
have, yeah, now it's, I lost any kind of thought I had of you as one of the best ever. You got absolutely bodied by Marab. Like you were
Wrestling guy.
you put all your like merits on. Oh, I'm the greatest. Like I was one
Olympic
of the
wrestler.
best wrestlers,
Yeah.
and you got bodied. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that was just odd to me. Yeah, I think that's all the news I got. We can get into Mount Rushmore here. All right, we're gonna get into the Mount Rushmore. So what we decided, we had kind of an off day where we don't have a pay-per-view, so we have different topics, different ideas we can come up with. So today we're gonna do the Mount Rushmore of fighters. This is our top 4. This isn't the best fighters. That doesn't have to be. This just has to be your top 4 fighters. Why, give a little bit background why they're in your top. Like I said, they don't have to be the best. You can have Tank Abbott be in your top 4 because he's the one who got you into it.
Mm-hmm.
It can be just garbage, but this is going to be the Mount Rushmore top 4. You want to take her? You want to start her off?
Yeah, I can do that. So for me personally, one of the main fighters who got me into watching MMA would be Michael Venom Page. I used to watch his YouTube videos online in high school. That was almost over 10 years ago now.
Yeah, I
That's
just was.
it's one guy who just got me
That's
hooked.
why. That's not wild. That's just like that would have not.
I'd watch his knockout videos and like the way he'd like afterwards like throw a pokeball at somebody or just do some crazy shit in the cage. Like it just got me fascinated with the sport, and that's basically where it started, was watching him. And then as I got older, I was able to start watching UFC because I was making money. So that's how that goes, right?
Dude, that was the worst. Like growing up, and it's like you can't buy a pay per
Yeah.
view. You don't even understand like how that system works, and it's just you.
The only way I knew how to like watch pay-per-view is like my family would go, or my stepdad at the time would go over to like somebody's house,
Yeah.
and we would like go have like a barbecue, and they would have it on or something, or they buy the card and
So
watch it.
my dad was that guy who would
Yeah.
have them, but we would never watch. Like I remember sometimes doing UFC, but we did like Pride a lot of the times too, because maybe they were cheaper or it wasn't even a paper. Like maybe he was illegally streaming it. I don't know how they did it even
Yeah.
back then, but like that was the like vague memory I have is watching old fights.
Yeah.
Would be they are on like what was the channel that had UFC on it?
Not this is Spike.
Spike TV.
Yeah. I used to watch that too.
The goated the dude channel.
Yeah. So Michael Venom Page, I guess, would be my George Washington face of the Mount Rushmore.
Ding.
Yeah, the first guy. So second would probably be Hoist Gracie, just because I went back and watched all those old fights, watching him choke out guys triple his size, pretty crazy. And that got me more influence because I grew up doing martial arts, so I dabbled in jiu-jitsu because it was part of my training. So we learned taekwondo, judo, jiu-jitsu.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would dabble in it. I wasn't fully invested in jiu-jitsu, but seeing those videos as well of him choking out people back in the day got me like invested into like learning how to grapple better as well. And so that would be my second guy.
Was that just like YouTube?
YouTube. Yeah, I spent a lot of time on YouTube.
I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
YouTube is in our blood.
Yeah. And That's how I learned most things.
That's how we learn everything.
Yeah, but nowadays you got to be careful with, because like
No,
there's so much bullshit on there now. It's like oversaturated, so you like have to like sift through all the bullshit nowadays. But
no, but that's
in
like
general, you can find a lot of good information on
what you
YouTube.
were saying to Andres the other day. How you were like he doesn't understand how we like YouTube so much. It's like, dude,
It's a
like we
generational thing. Yeah.
grew up on YouTube.
I literally remember the first time I went on YouTube, and it was my uncle came out to visit my stepdad and mom and I while we were living in New York, because that's where they're stationed at for the army.
Mm.
So my uncle and my aunt came out to see us, and he's always been a cable guy, like who sells like cable packages
Yeah.
to people. So he's always had spent a lot of time at home, and he was like one of the first people who had the internet installed at home. He's like one of the first people who had a computer at home. So like he was always kind of like in the know-how of like for the time as far as like what's going on in technology. And I remember he came over. This had to be like 2006, 2007 maybe. And he came over and he showed me peanut butter jelly time on YouTube, bro. And this is like when like the web page was like all white and like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, YouTube.
Like
The original
OG
yeah.
YouTube. And I remember just being like hypnotized, like, what the fuck is this? You mean you can just type in something and you can find a video
You'll
for
find
it?
dope videos of
And
it.
like people are just posting shit on here. And then this is also during the time of like iCarly was starting to become a show, and I'm obviously like a kid at this point.
Mhm.
And so iCarly also was like that first like investment of like, oh, you can just go online and look at videos, like
And literally just make
anything.
YouTube videos all the
Yeah.
time. God, YouTube.
Yeah.
It's just he won't understand. It was like YouTube was. I remember watching YouTube for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
I remember it was like one of those AMV, those animated. It was like a Dragon Ball Z.
Oh yeah.
Probably like Linkin Park or Breaking Benjamin.
Yep.
Like one of those just that went perfect with the song, and it was them powering up, and I'm like, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Yep.
God, shout out to YouTube.
Yeah,
You're the GOAT.
Yeah, kind of like raised me, honestly. Like
Yeah.
molded me into the person I am.
The generation right before us were raised on television, and we were raised on YouTube. And then Andres' generation was raised on TikTok.
Well, yeah.
The generation after him too is also raised on TikTok.
Yeah, for the past at least however many years, TikTok's been around 5-6 years.
Yeah,
I guess.
But our generation was raised on YouTube
for sure.
And that's he doesn't understand.
No. So yeah, Royce Gracie is my second guy. Third guy would be Khabib Nurmagomedov. Goated as fuck. Wish he still fought. Then fourth, kind of a wild.
Wait, why is Khabib on there?
Khabib's on there just for pure dominance reasons. In my eyes, pretty much never lost a round. If you like look back at it, you can make that argument of like he never kind of lost a round, which is insane.
I don't think you could say that about anybody else.
Yeah. So GOAT for show. That's really the only reason why, and just also like, I guess, as somebody to look up to as far as like a man, like that's a great guy to look up to. Minus all the religion, like I don't.
Even that, like that.
Even then, like I respect.
I'm not a religious person, but like that's the thing is,
by principle,
I think him being a religious man like that makes him a better person,
right?
And if that's what you need to make you a better person, then that's absolutely what you need.
Yeah, you can you don't have to agree with the religion, but you can still admire the fact that somebody would dedicate their life to something and believe in something that much, which not many people can do.
I think he's one of very few people also that would hang it up when he's literally at his absolute peak prime. Yeah. Where he's like, yep, I promised my mom. I cannot do this actually without my dad.
Right.
I promised my mom I'm not going to do it, and I'm not going to do it.
Like, how many fighters actually keep to their word when they say they're retiring? Like, not many actually mean it.
I guarantee Dana was also like, yo, I got millions here to give you. And he's like, yeah, I don't care. Where Dana was like, please, come out of retirement. I've got so much money to give you. And he's like, yeah, brother, I don't
think he pushed as much as you think.
I think he did initially. I think
At first,
initially,
maybe, but I'm sure as soon as he told him no, he was like, all right, there's no
right?
point.
No, but I think there was definitely a first initial like,
Yeah, an offer
brother,
for
you
sure.
can't retire right now. You're literally at your peak. You can make so much money, and he's like, no,
Yeah.
I'm good.
I think Dana knows that like those guys from Dagestan are like there's really no like finessing them. Like you
Right.
can't like persuade them. If they say they're gonna do something, they're gonna do it.
He
So
made such a like identity with that whole like Dagestan. He's the face of Dagestan, Russia MMA, mixed martial arts.
yeah, for sure. And then my fourth, Demetrius Johnson,
DJ.
my boy. Yeah, goat as well. Best feather? What was that? Flyweight, whatever that latest weight is. Flyweight, 125.
I think he's the most underrated.
For sure, most underrated.
He's the most underrated goat. Like,
have you seen that fight with him against the guy in one that he lost to, and then came back and
beat the shit up,
kneed him in the face, and then fucked him up?
Dude, the flying armbar is probably the greatest move ever done,
hands down.
But I don't think he's the most underrated fighter ever, but I think he's the most like, I think he is in the GOAT conversation, and he's the most underrated of anyone who's ever been considered a GOAT.
Yeah, he never got the respect he deserved, in my opinion.
Of any fucking sport, though.
Yeah.
I think, like, you have, in any sport, basketball, you have LeBron and Michael Jordan. You have very defined, these are the greatest of all time.
Yeah.
People don't even think about DJ. He's the most underrated GOAT of any sport. Like, he is absolutely, hands down, pound for pound, one of the best fighters that has ever lived.
Yeah.
So and no one knows him.
Right. Yeah. So that's my summarization is MVP, just because nostalgia, and
he got you into it. He got you into it.
And then Royce Gracie because he's Royce Gracie, Khabib because he's Khabib, and DJ because he's the GOAT, underground GOAT in my opinion.
Yeah, like that. That's so wild to me though too. He literally is one of the greatest of all time. But if you asked any casual, doesn't necessarily watch UFC, if they knew who DJ is or Demetrius Johnson, they'd be like, no. But they know, like they've heard.
They know John Jones. They know Conor McGregor. They know maybe Khabib. Not all of them do.
I think Khabib is probably the only name, the Russian name that they know.
Only because they know, oh, that's the guy who beat Conor.
Yeah,
and
that's his claim.
Sad to like think that way.
It's wild. Underrated, most underrated.
Yeah, so all my like top four are probably guys that most casuals wouldn't know.
100%. But you would only know MVP from his finishes with like his
or the
like
fight you saw a couple weeks ago.
Right. Khabib would, I feel like, probably be the one that you would know the most.
I would hope. Yeah.
I think if you're introducing someone to UFC, you would like, oh, he was Gracie was in UFC 1.
Mm-hmm.
That like maybe people would know him, I guess, but not like
they probably know the name Gracie is associated with BJJ at least. I would think they would at least know that, but maybe not.
Maybe
it's hard to say. Everybody's so different.
That's a fire ass. Like that's a fire ass top four.
Yeah.
All right, my top four.
Let's hear it.
I'll start with how you did. So, introing me into MMA, Fedor.
Fair.
He was the first person who I remember, like, it's vague, but I remember going to people's houses and watching Pride and watching these, like, weird offshoot, like, underground sort of, not Pride, but, like, these weird underground, like, offshoot fight promotions that have Fedor in it. And he was always this like, oh, if he got to the UFC, he would beat everybody there. He was like, and I remember being a kid and being like, yo, he's the GOAT. If anybody just got to if he got to the UFC, it'd be over with. He'd kill anybody. And this was in the day too when UFC was like not what it is now as far as skill level.
Mm-hmm.
So, and he is a very slept on GOAT as well. I wouldn't put him in a GOAT conversation, but he was pure dominance in its peak when he was fighting the best fucking people possible in Pride. And he also looked like a way out of shape Russian dad while doing it.
It
GOAT.
was awesome. Yeah.
But he like his I'm trying to think of like he did things that were so awesome. When he walked out to the ring and it's just like this blank, it's like the Mirko Krokop,
I
like the
remember.
blank
Yeah.
stare of like I've seen people killed in real life. Like this is nothing to me.
Yeah. I
This
remember that
is
stare down between the two.
and it's like
Crazy.
this Fedor was so good and he's so slept on. No one knows who Fedor Emelianenko is. And he was that intro to me where I remember my dad talking about him like, oh man, he's the boogeyman. If he could, there was always those people, same like Michael Chandler, MVP. There was always these guys. Oh, if they got to the UFC, if they could just get him to the UFC, they always talked about him like coming back way out of his prime to fight Brock, and they're like, oh, he so good, absolutely so good.
I'm a fan.
Then, I also have Khabib on there, arguably for the same reasons. He just pure dominance. I think if I want what I look for in a UFC fighter, well, my number 2 and my number 3
Mm-hmm.
are this for these exact same reasons. When I want what I see in a UFC fighter, if I like a model UFC fighter, I want them to be the great. Like they don't have to be the greatest. They just have to be very good at what they do. But also, like you don't need this shit talking. You don't need that extra level of it. It's let me settle it in the cage and that's my shit talking.
Yeah.
I'll shit talk you while I'm punching you in the face and smashing you.
My favorite kind of fighter.
Khabib's on that list but he like I said too, he made a whole not a lifestyle. He made a whole like genre of UFC where there's this Dagestan like it's so much respect. It's respect and that religion goes into it too where it's like you just have respect for each other. Yeah, we're going to fight each other, but it's all respect afterwards. And it's pure like dominance where we don't I'm not a fan of shaving my head, but you got to shave your head. You have to do all these rules if you want to be the best.
What's the champion of 170 again? What's his name again? Forgot his name. Wrestling guy with a beard. What's his name?
Hamzat?
Not Hamzat. 170 champion right now. Bilal Muhammad.
Bilal. Yeah.
Just look at him. Like he got influenced by their camp, and look how good he's doing now. Like ever since he's hopped on the Khabib camp,
right?
It's been insane.
You don't have to follow their lifestyle. Like you don't have to do all that, but it's like
just being there
and being in their presence of like all we do is train.
Yeah.
This is what we do. Do you want to be the best? Here, like this is right here where you become the best. And it's just like, do you have the not even the skill? It's like you don't have to have the skill necessarily. It's just like, can you do this?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do the hardest thing ever?
Right. Yeah, because that training will prepare you for a fight.
Exactly. And then kind of springboard or going off of that too, GSP's in that category as well. Before Khabib, before all that, when I was really first getting into UFC, GSP was my model fighter. He doesn't talk shit. He's always in the best possible shape. He was in a time where steroids were very prevalent, and he was very, very much like, I'm not taking steroids. Yeah. I'm not doing this. I'm pure. I'm just training. I'm the best. He lost and then got his wins back. He lost and would make sure he got back and got better and would come back and beat him and be better.
Yeah. You don't see many like him at all. Ever.
No. The purest, like he is a purest fighter. Like that's what I call him. Him, Khabib. There's very few guys who are just like purist. All they want pure fighting. They don't care about all this other bullshit that sells fights and that makes the I get it. It makes the company money. It
does.
sells fights. It's how we've gotten eyeballs on the sport. We wouldn't be where we are today if it weren't for those things in the sport, unfortunately. Right. But I want to just see the best fights. I want to see the best people in the best shape fight the best people.
Yep.
And that's why people like GSP, Khabib.
Yeah. They always end up at the top at some point.
Yeah. And like you see GSP now, he could still maybe not be champion, but he could still fight. Sure. He's in the best shape. He's all about being in the best training. And he was one of those dudes too that was like, I got bullied so bad that I found a martial arts school and just like all I wanted to do was train.
Makes sense.
And that's all he ever did was train. And then he became what he is now. And then my fourth is Israel Adesanya. I think of the modern age, minus Khabib, he is just my favorite. Not as far as pure dominance, but like he's the type of dude, he is one of those other model fighters that I like, where it's, I'm not going to turn down fights. I'm going to continue to be active. There's a reason that I'm champion. I win, and then I'm going to fight again. I'm going to fight again. I'm going to fight 2 times a year. And he's going to keep fighting and keep going through all these people because there's people waiting in the wings, waiting to beat you. And instead of sitting around there's a lot of champions who just like, oh, I won. I'm going to sit around and putz around and keep people waiting for a year. Oh, am I going to move up? Oh, I'm not going to fight. I don't like that. I like guys like Izzy who are not afraid to ever fight. They'll fight anybody. They tossed everybody at him. And he was like, all right, I'll fight him. I'm not going to turn him down. I'll fight Rob. I'll fight Marvin Vittori. I'll fight Paulo Costa when everyone was like, oh my God, Paulo Costa's going to knock him out. He's this one-punch knockout guy. Exactly. So yeah, Izzy's in my top as well. He's one of those two where like, I think I would fucking fanboy out if I met Izzy. I'll glaze Izzy a little bit. Hate me in the comments if you want. I don't care. I'll glaze the hell out of Izzy. Everybody else, I'd be starstruck, but I'll glaze the hell out of Izzy. Yeah, that's my 4. So Fedor is my George Washington. Mm-hmm. He was my intro. He was my start. I'd probably put Khabib then too, because he was, or not Khabib too. I'll put GSP too, because he was Fedor got me into it, and GSP got me like hooked. Yeah. And there's other fighters around that time too. Chuck Liddell got me absolutely hooked. There was the first UFC game that they had too. It was like UFC Undisputed. It was like 2009. And that was like, I mean, the front cover was Chuck Liddell. It was Chuck Liddell and Rampage on there. You had those fighters who would not last a second in today's era, but were just, for the times, were the greatest. Yep. You have those guys who also put me on to it, but GSP kind of had that like number 1 spot. If he held it, he was the one who was like, I want every fighter to be just like him. Mm-hmm. Number 3, Khabib, and then 4 will be Izzy. Izzy is probably my favorite fighter of the last, I don't know, 5-6 years.
That's fair.
Yeah, that's our Mount Rushmore. Andres is not here, of course, so we won't have him in our video, unfortunately. We may or may not do another episode next week. We'll see how we're feeling, but for sure, March 8th, after we'll have an episode going over the new UFC, Ankalaev and Pereira. We'll go over that one, and we'll go over Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje. I don't really know if you want to go over any of the other fights.
We'll see. It'll play by ear, but
we'll see what if
as of now.
There's good fight.
Yeah,
Dan Hooker, Justin Gaethje. Please, just I want that fight so bad. That's gonna be my favorite fight. But thank you all for tuning in. Please like, comment, subscribe. Comment if you want to see, like I said, when we have weeks where we don't have a big UFC card, we'll have ones like this where we just kind of have a random topic. If you have any topics in mind that you want us to do, feel free. We got some big things coming up. I got some interviews with some people lined up. We got some interviews coming up. We'll break down some more fights. We'll interview some fighters. Want to thank y'all for tuning in, and we'll see y'all in the next one.
Bye.
Go!